Morning, good morning. Super glad to have everybody here on the call and super excited to kick off the Stride Injective AMA. This will be a recorded space, and super excited to kick things off and kind of moderate here and allow for Eric and Vishal to kind of go back and forth on the recent collaborations that have been announced between Injective and Stride and all the potential that's there. So without any further ado, I'd love to kick it over to kind of Eric and Vishal. We can start with Eric and just kind of, a quick introduction. I'm sure kind of the communities are familiar on what, both Injective and maybe Stride are on a high level, but if you could, both touch on them and then talk on the kind of, beginnings of this partnership that was just announced, and we can kind of dive in from there.
Yeah, hey guys, how's it going? This is Eric Chen, co-founder and CEO of Injective Labs. Injective Labs is a core contributor to the Injective blockchain and the ecosystem. So Injective is a blockchain pool for finance. It's a highly performant, interoperable, DeFi-focused blockchain that has a lot of out-of-the-box built-in Web3 modules where developers, especially financial application developers, can use to build their bleeding-edge DeFi applications.
Hey everyone. I'm Vishal. I'm the co-founder of Stride Labs. We are a core contributor to the Stride protocol. The Stride protocol is a fully open source liquid staking zone in Cosmos. What that means is we are an app chain, and our chain can provide liquid staking to essentially all other zones in Cosmos. We support 7 zones right now. The most recent of which we're incredibly excited about and is Injective.
Beautiful. Awesome. So, kind of just wanted to kick off here. I think that, several are kind of within our community are probably, kind of aware of liquid staking and how important liquid staking is to kind of securing and cementing an ecosystem and the growth on a lot of that side. Vishal, would love to kick off here and understand kind of, your thoughts on kind of the partnership surrounding, stINJ, and would be helpful to understand some of the broader concepts that drove you to kind of starting, Stride and more broadly, kind of the concepts around how Injective in our community are so much better off with these types of alternatives existing in the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to get into it, and really appreciate that introduction. I can start off with maybe a little bit about how Stride came to be and why we're deciding to tackle this problem. Stride Labs was founded by myself and Aiden and Riley as well, two of my close friends that we used to work together pretty closely with. Over COVID, we're all living together and kind of exploring different ecosystems, looking to different parts of DeFi, kind of falling down the crypto rabbit hole, so to speak. And we were pretty excited about Solana and Ethereum. But then there were all these sort of outages, and we started getting more disillusioned with them. Started thinking more about app chains and how the future of app chains could look. And then saw Cosmos and really fell in love with it, especially with IBC. And I still hold this opinion really strongly today. I think IBC is the most sophisticated bridging technology in the world, and I think probably will underpin kind of the future of blockchains. It's such a good standard to send tokens around. But at the time, Cosmos DeFi was a little bit more young than other ecosystems like Solana or Ethereum DeFi. And we thought a big part of that was that you had all these really amazing tech, chains that built all this great tech. But a lot of the core primitives hadn't been built yet. And one of the primitives we thought was really important was liquid staking, because it allows you to stop making this trade-off between, hey, I want to support my chain and secure it, as well as I want to go earn yield on the tokens I own. Especially for app chains, this is a really big trade-off, because every user who uses an app chain could also stake those tokens, and they're constantly faced with this dilemma of which of the two do I do. But liquid staking solves that. You can both stake your tokens to the underlying chain, support it, as well as use your tokens to start DeFi. So we thought it was a really it was a really needed DeFi primitive in Cosmos. That's what kind of inspired us to start Stride Stride Labs last year, and kind of we're working on making that a reality. In terms of Injective is actually personally the project that Stride supports that I'm by far the most excited about. for a couple of reasons. I'll list them out. One, just on a personal note, the Injective team, it was super helpful. Literally every single time we have an engineering question or some question about Cosmos or how does this thing work, how does that thing work on the marketing end, what's the right way to communicate this in Cosmos, or how do you think this type of proposal is going to go? All these questions, the team is super helpful with. Engineering questions, the team is true all stars and know so much about the stack of their chain, Cosmos in general. And so they've been really helpful in building Stride and really great advisors to Stride. From day one. So that's super exciting. But the second thing that I'm really excited about is I think Injective is building some of, frankly, the coolest tech in all of crypto. Like the things you can do on the Injective chain are truly remarkable. There's this whole ecosystem of apps that are being built. And it's really inspiring to see. And we hope that Stride and stINJ can start underpinning a lot of that ecosystem. A lot of the apps are going to build on top of Injective. We hope they'll accept stINJ, allow users to use stINJ, so then users can come into the ecosystem and don't have to have this dilemma of, hey, I want to support the Injective chain, stake it, but I also want to go use all these cool apps. I want to go use Helix. I want to go bet on sports, or I want to do whatever else it is I can do on Injective without having to make that trade off. The last thing that really excites me about Injective, so sorry, I'm running a little bit, but this is the last thing, but just the technology of the chain is quite cool. And the stuff that Injective has done to make the chain so fast, and so it involved actually quite a little bit of engineering on the Stride end to make sure everything works smoothly. But it was a good test, and we are really confident everything's going to go great.
Awesome. Well, I know the Injective team probably appreciates those words. I'll, quote a bit, and Eric can probably speak to that. And kind of, just based on that, without diving a lot deeper there, would love to understand, so obviously a liquid form stake token is obviously better, while you're obviously, presumably earning some staking yields as well. So could you talk about it a bit more on the technical side? And then with that, like, kind of what are some of the potential risks associated with liquid staking, and how are you guys specifically addressing those to kind of the users that are going out there and buying some STINJ in this case, right? We have seen this massive pool pop up. I know myself, I've been able to toggle on over to Astroport and access staked INJ, and would love to understand more so on the technical level, kind of the underpinnings of how you dealt with the risks and really what's happening on that end.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are both two really great questions. Let's dive into it. So, correct me if I'm wrong. The first question is just kind of technically what is going on in liquid staking. How does Stride work? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really great question. So one way to think about Stride is it's more or less a tech provider. Like we basically expose, some series of protocol logic that will help our users stake their tokens and receive back. Basically, what we think about it is a receipt that says, "Hey, this person has staked like 5 INJs. They have 5 stINJ." That's really all Stride is. On the back end, what's going on is if you give your INJ to Stride, Stride will take your INJ, will send it to its own account on Injective. What that means is the Stride app chain actually owns 4 or 5 accounts on Injective. These aren't accounts that like a multi-sig owns or a Stride association or foundation or whatever it is owns. They're truly owned by the Stride blockchain. So they're fully decentralized ownership. And Stride will send its tokens to these accounts on Injective, and then we'll send a command to stake it, unstake it, etc. And then when you as a user come in, you're like, hey, I'm all done my stINJ now. I want to get my INJ back. You give it to the protocol. The protocol will go and say, hey, you have 5 stINJ. That corresponds to 5 INJ. Go initiate a message to unbond your tokens, and then we'll get it back to you. But the key thing to keep in mind here is everything here is fully decentralized. There's no admin privileges. There's no multi-sig that's controlling the flow or anything. It's fully just controlled by the protocol logic. The long story short, the way to think about liquid staking is basically if you have stINJ, there is an exact amount of INJ corresponding to your stINJ sitting out there, staked on the Stride accounts, and whenever you submit the request, you can get those tokens back. In terms of the security risks, this is a really great question. This is something we think about every single day at Stride, is how can we make liquid staking safer, and what are kind of the risks here. The way I see it, there are like 4 main risks with liquid staking. The first is protocol risk or hacking risk. And what we mean by this is, there's always a risk for any software application. There's going to be a bug. And liquid staking is no different. There could be a bug kind of in the code that we made. We've done a lot of things to try to mitigate this. In particular, all of our tokens are staked. We have a lot of safety checks built into Stride trying to mitigate this. So actually, every single block on Stride, we run through a bunch of safety checks. Any of those checks fail, we start cutting off functionality for liquid staking in order to prevent an exploit. So, for example, say we had a bug that like infinite mint of stINJ. One block later, stINJ transfers and IBC transfers be cut off. So people hopefully couldn't exploit that bug. We're working on making this transactionally checked too, not just a blockly check, to make it even more, even higher coverage. But this I think, is a core risk of liquid staking and something we're trying to do a lot to mitigate. The second kind of risk is, or the last three I think are more specific to liquid staking. So next is validator selection. So there are different ways you can choose where your tokens are staked in a liquid staking provider, and depending on what that mechanism is, you might introduce a world where someone could liquid stake with your LSD provider, delegate to their own malicious validator, sell off their stake, and then delegate it, then restake it back to their malicious validator. Basically, cycle their stake and keep delegating more and more to their own bad validator. And bad could mean a lot of things here. The way Stride works is actually impossible with the Stride protocol, and we designed around this attack in mind. And so our validator selection mechanism is really decentralized. We have a council of at least 5 people from the relevant chain who pick, what the right token, what the right validators are to stake to, and we move it pretty slowly. So we take a lot of steps to address this type of attack vector. The next one quickly is just governance. Like, you want to make sure that governance rights in your LSD provider don't introduce any sort of governance tax on the host chain. And what we really mean by this is, if I can vote without locking up my stINJ, now I can buy a bunch of stINJ, vote, and sell it. I don't have to, if I vote really poorly, I don't really pay the consequences. And Stride's working on this. We're close to shipping this, but our governance is going to be involve basically the same restrictions as the host own to mitigate these attacks. And then the last type of risk is centralization. So liquid staking providers, if they get too much stake, so if they have like, say 50% or 60% of stake, that might be too much. There's centralization risk of exporting security to, or so much consensus power to another chain. I'm working on different ways to mitigate this with Stride. One of the first ways that we're close to shipping is like a modification to the staking module. That'll basically limit the total capacity of liquid staking zones. So it'd be like, liquid staking providers can, the chain can vote on what the maximum consensus power they want to give to it is. But yeah, those are the attack vectors, and happy to talk about it more. There's something to think about literally every single day is how we make Stride safer.
Yeah, no, that is awesome, and really sounds like that's at the forefront of your development, which is so important. And kind of with that, would love to kind of kick back over to Eric, and after all the great pieces, there, kind of what is your, how are you excited about kind of stINJ entering the Injective ecosystem for the first time, and how do you see its importance kind of taking precedence within the kind of ecosystem as it currently stands today?
Yeah. Also, just wanted to say, one of the most wonderful work done by Stride to, the external, global Cosmos ecosystem is their work around the IBC rate limiting. And, just wanted to say, kudos and really appreciate, all the open source contribution that kind of helped a lot of the other Cosmos Day projects to kind of implement these security properties. As for, kind of the advantage of stINJ, there are just, there's a lot of kind of inherent benefit that solves one kind of a key underpinning issue around the staking economics of Cosmos-based chains, and that is kind of the 21 days unbonding period, and kind of creating this almost like it is a derivative in of itself, but also essentially like a kind of like a bond offering where users can simply, users don't necessarily have to custody or manage their delegations, participate in governance, and they can, do that all through by just simply purchasing stINJ or kind of minting stINJ from Stride. And these are, really important features for the overall kind of liquidity and utility of the kind of like a staking economy on top of Injective. So yeah, really exciting, and I'm sure the TVL for stINJ is going to be kind of go up exponentially from here.
Nice, nice, no doubt. Already saw there was some significant growth on Astroport for kind of all the injective community tuning in. And then kind of, with that, Eric, like how will the introduction of a liquid staked version of INJ kind of impact the native token and the utilities it could have within the ecosystem, and like what type of use cases could some of our community members that are tuning in now kind of expect?
Yeah. One of the problems generally with regards to any type of proof of stake network token is kind of like this asymmetry between utility and the kind of a required return that's implied by participating in proof of stake. So this means that in a lot of cases, the native token is utilized a lot in various aspects. For example, gas payments. For example, governance, market creation, different types of participation, and also more importantly, people like to kind of hold it so that uh, they can utilize it as like a base trading pair, or utilize it for different types of rewards. And this also means that they're missing out on the staking incentives. They're missing out on the 16% APR presently within the network, and it also hurts the overall token economic of the blockchain itself when there's very little staking participation like all Cosmos chains. So Stride is, stINJ is a very, very strong, middle ground of this, where it ensures that it's basically like a staking bond, where it's a demonstration that this is a representation of the staked INJ. It has the same liquidity, the same flow, and the same type of utility properties as the native token itself, minus a few aspects. But it basically allows for this economic representation of the stake position without sacrificing, all the liquidity kind of restrictions from staking the native token itself.
Awesome, awesome. So now it seems like we have a great grasp of why kind of staked INJ is really awesome, and how we can get our hands on it. And so now, like, as I noted, just how can we get our hands in it? So, there's an Astroport pool, which is a very powerful automated market maker protocol, which we've seen kind of exponential growth over the past couple weeks. And, I just noticed that the STINJ INJ pool has filled up with quite a bit of liquidity. So for Vishal here, kind of, one, how can users provide liquidity to the pool? Obviously they can run through on Astroport, but would love for you to kind of talk through that end, and then would love to kind of hear from your perspective here, with reference to kind of the broader Cosmos ecosystem, how you think kind of the initial launch of STINJ has gone. From my perspective, seems pretty good, but would love to see it from your lens as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, all great questions. So on the first note, how can users obtain STINJ? So a few easy ways. So one, if you already have INJ, you on the Injective blockchain, and you have a Kepler wallet, you can go on to stride.zone or app.stride.zone. There's a nice front end there. You can go, it'll have a nice little modal. You hit the atom icon at the top, select INJ, and then you should just walk through the flow. It'll take you like 1 minute, and you'll end up with STINJ. You can then export right back to the Injective blockchain, and it'll walk you through all those steps. If you don't have a Kepler wallet, we're working on adding MetaMask. The next couple of weeks, we're hoping to add MetaMask support too, so then all Injective users can use the same wallet. No issues there. That's coming pretty soon. If you want to just other thing you can do if you have INJ, you can go buy stINJ right in Astroport. There's a lot of liquidity. There's $1.2 million of liquidity there, I think. So as long as you're buying, less than a few hundred K, there's more than enough liquidity to go around there. And then to answer a question of like how can someone add liquidity? Two ways. So one, if let's say you have some INJ, you have to convert half of that to stINJ, and you can do that in either of the previous methods. Either go to app.stride.zone with your Kepler wallet or Leap wallet, whatever else it is, and MetaMask coming very soon, or you can go buy stINJ with half of your INJ. Then run Astroport will let you LP directly into that pool. Yeah, and then in terms of how the launch went, so in some senses, I think it went really well. We've really popular people. Injective has a huge community that I think is starting to get exposed to Stride. We had a lot of people reach out and learn about the protocol. A lot of really great liquidity, tons of users. We had I think 1,000+ users liquid stake already. a pretty large and successful launch, I think. One thing I'm really excited though to see going forward is there's this huge DeFi ecosystem that's been getting built on Injective, and we're really excited to see how STINJ takes part of that. A few kind of examples come to mind is like lending markets or stablecoins, or just using STINJ as collateral, and they were going to see more and more of this as the market matures. And I believe, dropping a little bit of alpha here, but I think there is a money market on Cosmos that is about to add stINJ pretty soon. Not on the Injective blockchain, but so we're already getting more and more utility for stINJ.
Awesome. Well, that is quite a bit of alpha that you just dropped in the community. So, we'll all have to keep our eyes out for where stINJ could kind of pop up next. And kind of, I think that both Eric and Vishal here have really touched on a lot of the underpinnings of how, great this new, liquid staking, alternative to INJ is. And outside of kind of the liquidity and yield generation, how does the liquid staking and this opportunity contribute to the overall security of the decentralized network? And would love to hear a little bit more on that. Maybe Eric, to start with your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like I can explain this in the simplest way possible. Staking is very difficult. Oftentimes, you have to figure out like how to do it. For large players and institutional players, you have to work with custodians. You have to actively manage that. You have to monitor like which validator is online, which validator is unbonding, which validator is slashed. You most likely have to be able to distribute it evenly to ensure the decentralization and security of the network. Whereas for Stride's case, it's a click of a button and you're set.
Nice. And Eric, kind of right now with that, you noted a 60% APR APY. Would love to, on the Injective side, if you could, for our community, jump a little bit more into kind of where that initial kind of staking number comes from, and then two, how that spills over to an stINJ holder.
Yeah, so this means that you practically speaking get the exact same APR as any type of delegator, any type of staker from stINJ itself. And on top of that, I think the more important aspect is that you don't have to manage it. You don't have to worry about the governance aspect of things. You don't have to run a node yourself, etc. as a validator. And I think. Basically, once you have that stINJ, there's so much more utility to it beyond, for example, like if you stake INJ, the only utility you get is pretty much only governance. Whereas for stINJ, it can be utilized in a lot of protocols, etc. And those are all, very, very significant advantages. I would say another really interesting point is that basically currently within the landscape of Cosmos-based chains, the APR for staking, proof of stake, fluctuates between a range depending on what governance sets. Could be 5% all the way up to 15 or 20%, sometimes even higher. And this type of APR is determined by governance, but there's a default parameter which fluctuates based on the staking participation. So this means the lower staking participation there is, the higher the APR will be. So let's say, for Injective, I believe there's a target inflation of a single-digit percentage. I remember it being 5 to 7%. And so this means that the less people stake, the higher the APR will be, and the more people to stake, the lower the APR will be. And basically, when people stake too little, for example, like the staking participation is only 10 or 20%, this creates a major issue where, first of all, the security of the chain is compromised. And on another hand, the APR just goes insane for like the participating few. And Stride really levels the playing field of this. It basically alleviates a lot of the illiquidity concern around staking, especially for smaller guys. And at the same time makes it much easier to secure a network and create a lot more unlocked liquidity for all types of utility.
Nice. Thank you so much for touching on that. And honestly, I mean, my reflection is adding incredible security to the network, as well as allowing for kind of community members to earn even additional yield on their INJ holdings. Seems like a win-win here. So with that, Vishal, would love to understand. Can you kind of walk us through the process of, you noted kind of adding support for MetaMask and kind of what the support solutions are already that exist for kind of, I guess we could start with wallet connections on the Stride side of things, and any others upcoming. Would love to, inform our community there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question again. So right now we support 4 wallets at Stride. You can use Stride with Kepler Wallet, Wallet Connect, Leap Wallet, and Cosmos Station Wallet. Um, However, we're adding support for a bunch of wallets pretty soon, including many more EVM wallets. So we're trying to integrate with so one MetaMask. We're trying to add support for that on our site, so you can use Stride for both Injective and also Ethnos. You could use MetaMask natively. We're also working to integrate with other wallets that are more popular internationally. I don't want to name any names just yet because it's not finalized, but in the next couple of months, I think you'll see a lot more wallets going much more cross chain. Part of the thinking here is uh, Stride is really focused on liquid staking and Cosmos. But part of that, I think, given that Stride supports tokens across so many different Cosmos chains, and we're hoping to get one token for every single chain that every single chain in Cosmos. Um, Part of what we're also looking for is how can we spread the word of Cosmos to other ecosystems. Cosmos has so much great tech, some of the best tech in all crypto, and we're working on kind of exporting that to EVM ecosystems or Solana or other spaces. So we're trying to look at wallets that will allow users from those ecosystems to more easily onboard onto Stride and Cosmos as well. So yeah, that right now we support 4 wallets, but a bunch more coming pretty soon.
Nice, nice, nice. Awesome. So, Eric, I think you touched on this kind of briefly before, and many of the EU kind of listeners and community members around Injective are focused on kind of applications that are optimized for finance. So, how do you see liquid staking kind of tokens taking off more specifically within kind of the DeFi lens? And are you specifically excited about any specific use cases that could arise on Injective, or we could expect to see, especially with the upcoming hackathon and several new primitives coming to the chain?
Oh, so many. I think like it's in the name, liquid staking derivatives. It's literally a very, very powerful financial instrument, and it's very, very easy to price. And overall, like it's just one of those things that's very much synonymous with DeFi these days. So the utility behind it is just, is just extremely exciting. And like Vishal mentioned before, one of the most obvious use cases is using it as collateral for lending protocols and money markets. That's coming out as well. And then on top of that, I'm sure there are a lot of excited builders that are looking for like a lot more applications for not just stINJ, but a lot more, a lot of the other, Stride liquid staking derivatives assets to expand your utility and kind of focus on the financialization aspects of it. And then on top of that, I think that there's just so much kind of like utility that can potentially be unlocked through various different types of on-chain mechanisms, through collateralization for derivatives, through different types of utility. One of the interesting example could be that let's say if there's a INJ quoted market, instead of using the native token INJ, which understandably has a limited liquidity because most of the tokens are staked for proof of stake mechanism. What's very much possible is basically like stINJ will be utilized as the quote pair. So yeah, like there's so much kind of exciting kind of like a potential utilities and implications for the entire DeFi space.
Yeah, wow, wow, that is pretty novel that there's the potential, for even stINJ to flip right in the DeFi sense, the existing kind of DeFi mechanism. So with that, Vishal, it's come to my attention kind of to celebrate this launch that Stride may be offering some form of exclusive airdrop to Injective stakers, and don't want to give up too much alpha on the AMA today, but to share with our users how they are able or eligible for any airdrops in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, we're super excited about this. So Stride is airdropping 100,000 Stride to Injective in the next. We're hoping to get everything kind of finalized in the next month or two, I think. So the details, yeah, it'll be 100,000 INJ, and to be eligible, you don't need to do anything right now. We took a snapshot of Injective stakers, and a sample's already done. And so depending on if you had Injective staked at that point, we have our minimum cutoff at somewhere around $100 usually for most chains. So if you had somewhere over $100 worth of Injective staked, you'll be eligible, and that's it. And so once it gets released, you can log on to Stride DAO, go to the airdrop tab, and then you can see how much exactly you're eligible for and run through the tasks. Well, the tasks total will take you under a minute probably to complete. It's really just getting you familiar with the Stride blockchain. You'll get kind of some portion of airdrop for free initially. Then you stake that airdrop on the Stride chain to learn how to stake on Stride. And then you liquid stake any amount of INJ. It could be 0.001 INJ, just to get a sense of how the Stride app works. And that's it. Then you're done claiming your airdrop. And one other thing that Stride does that I think is pretty different than other airdrops. If you look at other big airdrops in Cosmos, their claim rate isn't always the highest. So like Osmosis is a good example, really big airdrop, but only I think like under half of it would end up being claimed. What Stride does is for the air, and people often also announce these big airdrops, but only like a third or half of them get claimed, so they're really not that big. What Stride does is basically we look at all the tokens that weren't claimed for the first round of the airdrop. So let's say the airdrop is 100,000 STI or 100,000 Stride. After the first 3 months, only 50,000 of it was claimed. What we'll do is we'll take the remaining 50,000 and then we'll redo the airdrop with that. So we'll just restart the airdrop again. So then if you claim the first batch, you can just come back and claim again. Anyone who didn't claim properly or didn't claim their tokens the first time basically forfeits them. And the second time, you don't have to do any task or anything. I think you just log in, you hit claim, or I think you have to run the task, but there's no vesting, and you get the tokens immediately. So in this way, you can do the Stride airdrop pretty much every month, and you get more Stride every single month.
Nice, awesome. Well, exciting stuff, and glad to hear that now our community is more informed than they were before, and kind of not too many kind of more specific questions for the two speakers. Kind of wanted to allow for this time now for you guys both to maybe potentially take the floor and talk about the future of Stride and how it pertains to Injective and how the Injective community could also be interested in kind of what you guys have going on. If you wanted to start there.
Yeah, I think, like really looking forward to MetaMask support for sure. Along with other EVM compatible wallets, that's always something exciting to look forward to. And on top of that, I'm sure there are a lot of upcoming instruments beyond just stINJ that we can look to support and synergize with. Kind of like the financialization aspect of it, especially with the upcoming hackathon where people can explore a lot more of these use cases. I think historically, one of the more widely adopted use cases for staking derivative is used as collateralization for borrowing certain stable coins, but there are certainly a lot more potentials than that and a lot more exciting use cases.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, so sorry. Go for it.
No. Go ahead, Vishal. Yeah, would love to hear kind of any exciting updates, even outside of Injective, kind of, and what you're excited to see, kind of moving forward.
Yeah. So definitely echo everything Eric said, and then a few other things they're working on that I think are pretty exciting. The first is unrelated to Injective, but Stride is moving to ICS. So next, we're working on this pretty hard, but next, hopefully month or two, Stride moves over to interchain security. And becomes a consumer chain. Our economic security will go to the billions, and it'll be hopefully make the whole product much more compelling and much safer. The next thing, two quick features I just want to highlight that I think will be really good for stINJ. One is governance. So we're working on this and hope to roll this out pretty shortly after ICS. But you can then vote with your stINJ tokens. So if there's a big Injective proposal, you don't have to worry about losing your governance rights. As long as you own your stINJ, it can even be used in DeFi. Maybe it's in Ask Reports, maybe it's in maybe it's on Helix, wherever it is. You go vote with it. And then the other feature we're working on is in protocol auctions for instant redemptions. And I don't want to give away too much on this right now, but basically you'll be able to when you have your stINJ, you could basically sell that to that protocol, and the protocol will give you INJ immediately back. This will be done through like an auction mechanism, and the idea here is it helps support the price between stINJ and INJ because it makes it easier to transact between them, and also allows you as a user to more quickly unbond your stINJ. So two quick things we've been working on.
Awesome. Well, I mean, the governance side of things, that's very exciting, specifically for a community that we know are always kind of active within the governance space as well. So awesome stuff. This has been a great space. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. As Eric just mentioned, another big reminder that the Injective Hackathon is open to register and starts April 10th. Developers interested in participating, please visit injective.com, where you'll be immediately visited with a pop-up. Also, huge reminder to follow both Vishal and Stride on Twitter for the latest updates and how they could pertain to kind of, all the great work that Stride is doing on the Injective ecosystem, as well as all, everything else within Cosmos. And lastly, check out the blogs that we've published that can go through in more detail how a lot of this works. And as noted, the big alpha, Vishal noted a potential, Stride airdrop coming sometime in the future. So kind of, again, this space was recorded. Really looking forward to all the great things that Injective and Stride can continue to do together on the liquid staking side of things and beyond. But that's it for today, folks, and appreciate everybody for joining.
Thanks so much for moderating, Keeper. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're really happy I was able to be on here.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.